Hi everybody, this is my very first YouTube live, so I hope the technology and I get along well, which is not a given for me with technology. But welcome to sock darning. That was the topic that I wanted to go over today. I put a picture up on our Facebook and Instagram of the holiest socks ever and how I fixed them. And a lot of people said, hey, how do I do that? So I thought I would do a video of how I did it. Plus, this would give me an excuse to make sure that I got another one of my socks darned because it's cold now and all of my wool socks have holes in them. So I'm going to jump right in and show you how do you turn a sock with a gigantic hole. See this huge two-parter hole? How do we fix that and turn it into something that looks more like this? And I assure you all of these socks are clean. They're just very well worn. So they have seen better days. They're all probably about 10 years old. One of these days I will make myself some new socks, but it's faster to darn them than it is to make new ones. So all the materials that you really need to darn socks are a sock with a hole in it, or almost a hole. For some reason, this sock of this pair is really, really bad. You can see I've started to mend the hole, another hole on it. And then this sock of this pair is not bad at all. So I am going to show you the first demo is going to be on this. I'm going to call it a proto hole. It's not actually a hole, but it's very, very close to a hole. It's a very, very thin spot. And so I'm going to get started with showing you how to do that. So you need a you need a sock with a hole in it. You need some sock yarn. It does not have to match. So this is not the same color. It's obviously not the same color that I mended this one on. If you happen to have some of the same color that you use to make the sock and you want to use the same color, you certainly can. But you can use absolutely any sock yarn that you want to use. And generally a sock yarn is like a fingering weight, this sort of thickness. Generally it's mostly wool with a little bit of nylon. So this is a bright blue that I had left over from a different project. And so you'll need some sock yarn. I like to use about like as far apart, I stretch my arms as far apart as they will go, and that's the length of yarn that I cut. I find if I go any longer than that, I get it tangled up on itself, and I spend more time untangling my yarn than I do mending the sock. So what I want to do now, a lot of people will be fairly familiar with something called a darning egg. It's generally like made of wood and it's kind of got a knob on the top and a handle on the bottom. It almost looks like a microphone that's made totally out of wood. If you have a sock darning egg, that's great. If you don't have a sock darning egg, you actually don't need anything. You can just use your hands. Obviously, when you're darning a sock, you don't want to sew this hole, like you don't want to sew the sock closed. You don't want to sew that hole to the other side of the sock so that you can't put your foot in it. But you can just use your finger to stick like your whole hand inside of there. And now I'm not going to accidentally sew through my hand into the other side. Also, a tapestry needle is blunt. You're not going to hurt yourself with it. If you find your hand a little bit awkward and you want something else to put in there, but you don't have a darning egg, I don't have a darning egg, I use a canning jar lid, or I've been known to use like an upside down yogurt pot, anything that's a flat surface. Raid your recycling bin is generally a good place to find something like that. And then you can just slip it inside the sock, and now you have this nice flat surface to work on. And it's kind of reflective, so you can see it super easy in the video. So now I'm going to, I found the spot that I want to mend kind of right here. All you're going to do this mending, generally you don't want to just mend the tiny, tiny area where the hole is, because generally you've got some sort of stretch and a bit of unraveling all the way around the hole. So generally I kind of like to go about, I don't know, a ½ inch up from the hole and a ½ inch down and a ½ inch around either side. So you're a minimum, if your hole is tiny, tiny, going to be doing like an inch square. And if your hole is bigger and you've got a lot more damage around the outside, like this, obviously I'm going to be doing a much larger patch on this one. So I am going to, let's see how well I can do this from looking at myself in the mirror. I'm going to come down with my threaded tapestry needle, and I'm just going to put my needle under a tiny little bit of the yarn that's there. All I am doing at this point is a darned sock patch is actually created as a woven piece of fabric. And if you've ever done any weaving, even like as a little kid on those little kid looms, you've got to create the up and down strings of the woven section. So you can see it here. You've got the up and down strings of the woven section. That's going to be like you're setting out your loom. And then once that's set out, we're going to do the back and forth, like under over part of that woven section. So when I start out here, I'm going to just go a bit under, kind of feel like I'm outside of that area that's really badly damaged on the sock. Go under that section. I'm going to pull my yarn until I've got about a 6-inch tail hanging. And now I'm going to come up to above where that hole is. And I'm kind of trying to create a straight line here. So I'm kind of going up above and under another little section. And that created the first, what would be called the warp, like the first up and down strings of your woven section. And then you're going to come back down, you're going to go into the hole you came out with the last one, go across another couple of strands across, pull that through. You can see why, yeah, I'm very coordinated. You can see why I said don't make your string too long, because then you all kinds of get it awkwardly wrapped around yourself and your hair and all kinds of things. So now I've come back down and I've made 2 strings now of my 2 warp strands of my woven section that I'm doing. And we're just going to repeat that. I'm going to come up to the top, go in where I came out the last time, go under a couple, pull that, come down back to where I came in, and we just keep doing that until you've covered the entire area with those strands of weaving, or strands for weaving. This is again kind of, it's like warping your loom here across. So we're just going to keep doing that until we've covered the entire section that we want to be doing our weaving for. So I would go across at least another this far. On the other side, I would probably go over to about there. Just go across until you've created all of those little woven sections. And so at this point, it's going to look something like this. Again, I'm going to take my highly sophisticated, this really is a yogurt pot, darning egg and put it in. And you can see I have already done through the magic of pre-planning, which is not a great strength of mine normally, I've already done all of those straight lines across. So they don't have to be perfectly square or rectangular. If the hole gets smaller on one end, your little weaving patch can get smaller on that end. That's totally fine. Once you've created that hole up and down to cover the full amount of the hole and all of the sort of really weak yarn around the hole, now we're just going to do the over-under part of weaving. So I'm going to go, my yarn is still connected. I didn't cut it at all. This means you don't have to weave in as many ends. I'm going to come over that first string, come over the string and under the string underneath it. And if there's some fabric, I'm going to peek at it this way because it turns out I can't do this from looking at myself in the screen. If there's some fabric under there, so you can see how I've actually caught a little piece of the original fabric of the sock, that's even better. So if there's some under there that you can grab, go ahead and grab it. If you're on a section where there's a hole, there's no fabric under there, so you can't grab it. So that's fine if you can't, but if it's there, try to grab it. So I went over one, under one, and I'm going over one, under one, over, under, and you just are going to do that the whole way, over, under. Again, if the fabric is there from your sock, you're not over an exact hole, go ahead and grab it. If there is no fabric there because you're on the whole part, that's fine too. Over, under, over, under. And when you get all the way across. So you can see I'm just over, under, over, under. This is the kind of weaving that my 5-year-old does, although generally not on my socks. You're gonna pull it through, and you can kind of smush it down a little bit, but it'll kind of nest down there a little bit more as you go. And now we're all the way out on this side. We want to secure it out here on this side. So we're just going to take a little, I would call it a bite of fabric. Like you just go in and back out just under a couple strands. It's not an exact science. And you pull that through. And now we're going to come back across, but this time we're going to go the opposite. So if we went over the up and down string, that would be the warp. If we went over it the last time, we're going to come under it this time. So when we're coming back here, we're going to go over this first one and under. And we're just going to repeat, able to tell as you're going. Nope, am I too close? You should be able to tell as you're going, does it look like it's the opposite of the last time? So as you go under here, you'll say, okay, I can tell I went under that last time, I need to go over it this time. And the more you do it, the sort of faster and more intuitive it gets with that. So, and sometimes you've got to poke and prod it just a little bit under. And that is how you're going to do your, sorry, I can't walk and chew gum at the same time either. That is how you're going to do your darning. There is not more to it than that. It is not a complicated thing. It doesn't take very long. It definitely is taking me longer to do this while I describe it than it would normally take me. And I can tell I've gotten off. If you can see as I get towards here, I can tell I went under this strand the last time and I'm under there again. So I just, somewhere along the line, I've gone either over 2 strands or under 2 strands, and I've gotten myself off on my opposite thing there, and I spotted it. I went over 2. And once you've done a couple of passes through, it also gets a little bit easier. It's almost like it sets itself up a little bit more. So now I've got it perfectly over, under, all the way across, and I've even gone ahead and taken that bite. I've gone through the fabric of the sock on the other side. And so now I can pull that through, and you can kind of push it down just a little bit. And as you keep going, you are going to fill that in until it's more and more sturdy and create that patch. And there is nothing else to it. You just go over the one you went under the last time, over, under, all the way across, and then flip it around and go the other way until you filled up that whole little section that you have there. And if you want to see what it looks like from the inside, here's the inside of that one that I did. So you can see the section where the actual hole was. All you see, even from the inside, is that mended section. You can see where there was still some fabric. The fabric is not loose and floppy. As you catch those little strings when you go under, over, you're securing it into that part of the sock as well. So that is how mending, sock darning, that is how that works. You can do it on sections that have holes already, like this, or you can do it on sections like I showed you at the very beginning, where it's a proto hole. It's not actually a hole yet, but it's very close, and you can tell it's wearing super thin. And that's what this is. This patch, there's not actually a hole under there, but that kind of, there's a whole huge, like, full 1.5 inch square kind of a shape in there, where it was so thin, it was like just holding on by a thread. And so I went ahead and did the whole mending over that entire section. And you can see there's not a hole, but you can also very much see how it gets very, very thin. And with that blue tacking on there, it's just going to keep everything more secure and sturdy for the whole life of the sock. So again, these are hand knit socks out of a traditional hand knitting sock yarn. That's probably like 75 or 80% superwash wool, and then the rest 15-20% of a nylon to give it that extra strength. These socks are both at least 6 years old. They were definitely before I had my kiddos. And they're probably pushing 10 years old. And I only have about 5 pairs of socks that I have knitted for myself, and I wear them every single day that it's cold. So these all get worn at least once a week for like 4 months of the year. And they hold up for 6 plus years. And with the darning, they should hold up another couple of years. Hopefully until I get a chance to make myself more hand knit wool socks, because I really like to wear them in the cold weather. So I hope you guys found this helpful. If people like it, I will do more Instagram or more YouTube lives. It takes a long time for us to edit and upload the YouTube videos. It's much, and we haven't had a chance. If you've been following along, we are now homeschooling our kindergartner, which is not my favorite thing to do, but that took up the time that I was using to get videos edited and posted on YouTube. So I don't have that time anymore, but YouTube lives, I don't have to do that part. So I'll see if this works for people, and we'll keep doing it. Enjoy. Hope you have warm feet in the cold, chilly fall that we're finally getting here. Bye, everyone.